trying to tie in is that I get a little bit sidetracked like my math teacher, but I have the best experiences around my math teacher, making an opportunity for me to meet the love of my high school career. So I want to say that sometimes tangents aren't entirely bad, um, but they can get you in trouble if people don't appreciate them. But what I meant to say is that I think that um, uh, in Africa, I think that we are of one experience and one destiny and of one bounty. That you could say that that's what this is. The black is one experience. That is one people. The red is no, wait, sorry. So the black is one people. And I think reality is one person. I really do think reality is one person. And the most beautiful experience you may have, or I may have had, is to recognize that yet we had been the same person. All of us, and only of us had been one person, but we are at different points of a cycle we are at different points of an unlimited cycle, and there are different duties, characters, honors, joys, pains, and sufferings, and lessons, more so significantly lessons at each degree of that cycle that are all necessary. And so we're all working tirelessly to furnish and appreciate lessons for one another and ourselves. But what do these lessons amount to? They amount to equally an experience of and an understanding of what it means to exist. That is that's what we're doing here. I think, but we're not limited to that. That's what I think. What you think is what you think, and it is real and realer than what I think, and it is also what I think because you are me, and I think I am you, and I don't mean that disrespectfully. And so your experience is as valid, and it's part of also fashioning the lessons of experiencing and understanding what it means to exist, and also what it means to exist, to experience what it means to exist, and understand what it means to exist is different from one person's experience to another person's experience, and that's also what it is to experience what it is to exist and understand what it means to exist. So I don't want to say, so nothing is limited at any point, even these type of statements I'm making. But I just meant to say that is my understanding of compassion, is that we had yet been one person. And when you can see the redemption in the fact that we had been one person, it may be something so sublime as though you had approached seeing what could be called God, Nirvana, Satori, Chidgana, enlightenment, and these things, and these different mukti. I think so. A being. So a being can be called Jivan in heritages of India. A being locally, what's appreciated as individually, can be called Jivan, but also collectively, I think can be called like Jivatma, would be the entirety of beings. And then Mukti is freedom. So Jivan Mukti is the freedom of a being. And then I think there may be a word for the freedom of all beings, would be similar to that. And if you look into the works of Arthur Adeline, you can kind of put together some of those words, where they're not just fancy spiritual words in themselves. They're actually a vocabulary and vernacular for dimensions of reality, subtle and profound, that can be employed as I think nomenclature is like a word for terminology specific to a scope of understanding or initiative, and they are a nomenclature for some of the sublime and subtle aspects of what we are existing as. And you can appreciate them and read them, and also enunciate them working with the works of Arthur Avalon. But it would be unintelligible the first time you pick up his books, and it takes many passes to get further and further and further, and then all the way through his books, and then all the way back further and further, and all the way through the books again. And it's not more so intelligible until you've gone over it many of times, like I've said in some other videos, that we learn more so only the things that we do many times. And that's a brilliant book, where the first time you pick up a book of Arthur Avalon, if you're not from the heritage, so he had some books that are called Introduction to Tantra, volumes 1 and 2. And then if you were to work with those books The first time you can appreciate how deep he's talking, but it's largely unintelligible. But you engage with it for for a few months, then a year, then a couple years, then 5 years, then 10 years, then a little bit, maybe about a decade and a half, and you can read it as though you're reading a children's book. And because it's true, and it's teaching you, and it's making itself simpler to you, but it takes effort and thought to get there. And I'm not saying I'm better for having done that. It's just an experience that I came through that I think I was benefited by, but it doesn't make me better, less, or learned, or less learned than anyone else. Um, but um, but so there's different thoughts about what it is to be free. But I think that the deeper aspect of that is just simply to recognize that we have been one person, and all people may be better. But I chose that I don't want to cry when I see that, because I listened to the rapper Space Ghost Purple, and he says in one rap song way back, he said, I swear I won't cry. And I've made up my mind that I don't want to cry when I see that, just because I've been through a lot, and I respect it, and I respect Ghana and what life is about, but I don't want to cry when I look at that, because it's already been a lot. But I but so I think that we are connected deeply, and so we are like with the as it's understood, the black is the people of Africa, the red is the blood of the people, and then the green is the bounty of Africa, but also the people that are not different from Africa, and it's also the bounty of unity. But what I appreciate is that you could say I appreciate maybe as the black is maybe reality, which is not different from people. People are reality, and reality are people. And then the blood is the experience, the pain, the sacrifice, the sweat, the labor, the tears, the joy, the sex, the fun, the liberty, the trouble, the danger, the safety, the comfort, the rest, the work, the saving, the investing, all that. I see that in the color red, and then that amounts to, so you have reality and experience, reality and people, and that amounts to the green, the bounty, the essence, the meaning, which none of that had been possible without the meaning. None of that would have been enjoyable, sustainable, or survivable without meaning. And then there was sacrifice and loss, and that may not have been honorable or equitable without meaning, and a lot of it was wrong and is wrong. But there's redemption in it, and a potential at rebirth and re-life, I think, also through meaning. And then so it's viable by meaning, it's enjoyable, sustainable, and redeemable by meaning, and then it's also valuable by meaning, making the whole thing possible again. And I don't see how any of that is limited by considerations of culture, geography, race, ethnicity, or anything. And that but some people would say that we haven't actually all emanated, or any of us have emanated from what's called Africa, as much as people would say we have emanated from Africa. And I don't have enough grasp of facts of history to speak to defer to that, or to contend with that intelligibly. But so I would say it can be as equally true if that's how a person thinks. And I didn't mean to be a chauvinist with that statement and saying that we all had came from Africa, but I do think that we all had came from one person, and we are all going back to one person. And that's the viability for many people in diversity, is that in the best sense, unity facilitates diversity, and diversity facilitates unity. And I don't think that nature could have existed healthy this many eons to be as young today as it has been forever and will be forever without both diversity and unity. If we were nothing alike, we couldn't cooperate, and we couldn't reproduce, and we couldn't sustain. If we were nothing alike, if we weren't reciprocal, if we weren't compatible, if we weren't a composite, yet if we weren't dynamic, diverse, broad, different, beautiful, terrible, horrible, awesome, lovely, loving, we wouldn't be dynamic enough to both challenge ourselves, because there's no growth without challenge. So we wouldn't be strong enough to exist without the challenge. If we weren't different, we wouldn't be interesting enough. If we weren't different, we wouldn't be attractive enough. If we weren't different, we wouldn't be sexy enough. If we weren't different, and sexiness can be, but sexiness is almost similar to that, because I think you can have sexiness between people that are similar, and different and both. And that's the beauty of sex, because it's unlimited and undefined as our people. So I don't want to say that attraction is only in difference, or only in similarity, or only in indifference. In balance, I'm not saying attraction is any of that, but I'm just saying that diversity is in diversity of similarity and diversity of difference is equally viable, and reality wouldn't be viable without diversity. So as much as we give each other a hard time for being different, we wouldn't be viable if we weren't different. I've seen different forums where they talk about black men, this and that, but what viability would the United States have economically, militarily, culturally, spiritually, intellectually, legally, scientifically, um, uh, pragmatically, infrastructure? What viability would that have without the strong contributions and love of black males before, now, and beyond? The different nations of the earth that are interested in migrating to the United States, or benefiting from the contributions of the United States where they are, not the least of which the stability of the U.S. dollar. Where I'm not going to introduce a discussion of the dollar because I can't speak to that or understand that, but I do superficially understand that the U.S. dollar, and some of the transactions that it has facilitated, that have been um, uh, uh, um, substantiated by U.S. influence, have to different degrees stabilized different areas, or amounted to different benefits to different areas. But one could equally say that there have been atrocities and horrors that equally came from the U.S. dollar and U.S. influence. So I don't want to say that either of that is right or wrong, or be distasteful or flippant about that. But I just want to say that the U.S. has made a lot of human experience viable, but maybe also equally not viable. But I just want to say that none of that would ever, a lot of what you may enjoy of where you are, like maybe it's in terms of culture, music, art, life, media, but also economics, prosperity, and a little bit of stability if it is possible. It may be a function of some of the influence of the United States, or the appeal of coming to the United States as a viable place to make a life, may also be a function of the contributions of what's called black males. As much as people have a problem about black males, in some, I'm not trying to say that all people do, but there are proliferate a lot of content and different egregious things that are leveled against black males, both in some of the mocking of our image that goes on, but then also some of the conversations that are not heard. Is that a lot of people have a problem with black males that might not be equitable with the contributions of black males. But that's true of other people too, I want to say. But all I meant to say is that reality is not viable without any of us. None of us are anything without all of us. You take out one person, you take out one animal, you take out one tree, you take out one plant, and this reality is not as great as it had been, and it might go to hell without them. You don't actually know what they meant to themselves, to people that love them, or to you, or to people that you love, or to people that might have a problem with you, that might have mercy on you because of some of the contributions that they had, or some people that might have had a problem with you that figured out something better to do because of some of the contributions that someone else made that you had a problem with. So all I'm just saying is that it's not good to go unless we're all good to go. When we're having a problem with anyone or anything. And so I just want to say that all people are beautiful, all people are loved, all people are loved, all people are needed, all people are enjoyable, all people are fun, all people are brilliant. The only thing that is not any of that is just misrepresentation and fabrication. Whatever is misrepresented in our experience that gives us a false experience or a false understanding, that's what allows us to do different things that amount to pain and loss to ourselves and others. However, reality, God is mercy, and is able, and may atone for anything. So we can get things back on track if we are mature enough to choose that, and I hope we are, and I hope I am. But I just want to say that you need all the members of a band to have rock and roll. All the members of the band, and the support, and the audience, and their parents that dropped them off to the concert, and the people doing the sound, and the custodian, and the people outside that are making a space for people to have a good time. Or you need all that to have rock and roll, and you need each person in this life and in this world to have rock and roll, or it had not been rock and roll. So I don't mean to mean any chauvinism with this opinion either. But what I want to say is that the deeper thing I was coming with is that the the the, the beauty is in understanding, and understanding is in difference. Similarity in difference, and difference in similarity is understanding and is insight and is peace and is love and is joy and is fun. And so I'm like what I meant to say is that a couple people have made I've came across a couple outstanding thinkers, and they conveyed that revolution, real revolution. So sometimes revolution can be as much trouble as it's worth historically, because said by thinkers like Osho that sometimes revolutionaries, they're effective in outing another seated government, but sometimes their identity is in being against something. So if your identity is in being against something, you are yet somehow bound to that, because it's something of a reaction, and you don't have your full identity without the contrast of what you're against. But when you're for, and that's some of the shortcoming of revolutions, is that it's kind of like they surmounted something and they toppled something, but they didn't actually have a standpoint or a footing for something original, something truly new, something truly transcendent. According to Osho, I can't speak to that historically, but according to Osho, because it had been freedom from, not freedom for. But what another great thinker, King Noble, said is that also sometimes you take different people who are revolutionaries, and they are about it, as he said, they're about that life, and they're going over all types of terrain, and they're going up against all type of things, righteous and unrighteous, because they feel a way about something, and they feel that they have suffered oppression and injustice, and they likely have. But sometimes they, between them, or where they are, whether during and after an occupation or over an overbearing presence had been removed, there may be difficulty between them and infighting between them. And I said in another video that infighting, I don't think is avoidable in reality. So you will have infighting whether you have all members of the human cohort, two members of the human cohort, or one member of the human cohort, me, myself, and I. There may be a discrepancy and a difficulty within identity, but that's also part of what keeps us changing and growing, because were I content with so I may have managed to extricate myself from different bogus family, employers, and friends and loved ones, to achieve a degree of agency and choice about what I choose to undertake, and thereby experience. But if I were completely content with who I am and what I am to this point, and what I think myself to be, what I feel myself to be, I would be stagnant, and therefore I wouldn't be vital, dynamic, and therefore I wouldn't have anything to appreciate and enjoy and continue to grow. So I may yet experience conflict within my own identity, which is that I want to experience what it's like to be sexy, or I want to experience what it's like to be responsible, or I want to experience what it's like to be affluent, or I want to experience what it's like to be meek, or I want to experience what it's like to be a artist more so than I am right now. That's a dilemma within my identity, something that I want to identify with, but I have to experience something to identify, and it causes me to seek challenge. The more disingenuous way would be to challenge people that don't have a problem with you, or that are not that are not antagonistic to you or detrimental to you, but to go on effing around people that didn't do you nothing, so that you can have a problem, so that you can have identity, so that you can have the experiences that you want. And that's really disingenuous to them and you you can get more than you bit off. You can get more to chew than you bit off doing that. But it's always to each their own. But I would say the more genuine way would be to find ways to challenge yourself rather than challenge others. And if you do challenge others, it's a form of challenging yourself, and it's in equity and reciprocity, and it's potentially a valuable, or there's something to be won that's equitable for both if you have to challenge other people. But I think that what's more so deeper is to challenge yourself, is to master yourself, which had you master yourself, you wouldn't be learning anymore. Therefore, you wouldn't be growing. Therefore, you wouldn't be dynamic and vital. Therefore, you wouldn't be a master. So it may also be oxymoron to say a master of self, but because self is anything but mastery, it's growth, it's learning, and it's costly and it's exacting, but it's anything but settled. We can say self is anything but settled, therefore anything but a master, because mastery more so communicates being settled. But if you can maybe be learning and understanding lessons and responding to discipline and employing discipline, that's along the lines of mastery. But it's not settled. There's but I wanted to say that. But what's more so profound is not the circumstances of revolution, the the sacrifices and victories of revolution in itself, but the state of mind of revolution. That's what is revolution, according to both Osho and King Noble. The experience of what revolution has to offer is primarily and fundamentally a state of mind, first and foremost, and anything to be experienced from that, emotionally, spiritually, physically, socially, spiritually, professionally, existentially, is a function of freeing our mind. Maybe you could say that existentially is not subsequent to state of mind. You can maybe say that existentially is before state of mind and after state of mind. But what is more so profound is the prerogative to combine associations as you are inspired to, and as benefits you and challenges you, and that's the closest approximation to freedom. The author Sir John Woodruff said that this entire universe, it is so unified as to be redundant, to dispense with the term unity, and also so diverse as to dispense with the term diversity. And the combination of the two is life, is diversity. Heterogeneous, different; homogeneous, same. The dynamic, transcendent paradox of what's homogeneous and heterogeneous is reality and is existence. And so according to Arthur Avalon, but within that you have, so all things are both collective and respective. All things are both unified and diverse. Therefore, all things are unique. That is what you can say all things are. You can't say all things are the same, and you can't say all things are different, but you can say all things are unique and uniquely similar and uniquely different, and totally similar and totally different, and both. But what what that amounts to is that you have, maybe there is no such thing except rhythm, and then counterpoint. That's what you have. So the counterpoint would be like improvisation, which is also subject to rhythm, and the rhythm is rhythm, but it's also facilitates counterpoint and is bettered by counterpoint. So it had been more so music when you have the rhythm and the improv. The improv is a function of the rhythm, but the rhythm is it's maybe a blessing of the improv, and it's more so rhythm when it's also being improv, because had it been a straight linear rhythm, it wouldn't be as dynamic as if it was an improvised and maybe a linear rhythm. So it's not linear, but it's not totally linear. It's not entirely both. It's somewhere nothing of that, yet something of that would be the most compelling rhythm. And then you have counterpoint, which is that you have yet more you add dynamicism to that rhythm, and now you have what can be appreciated as spontaneity and improvising, but yet it's still a function of the rhythm. And then I've said that music is rhythm, because whatever you have percussion, harmony, and melody are the fundamental units of music, generally understood. Maybe silence would be the deeper component of that is not recognized, but no less you have that. And then you have, but the percussive tone can be equated to any other tone, any other pitch, and it can be represented in the same metrics as pitch. But it's just like maybe a more blunt, or a more simple or dynamic pitch would be the percussion. It can be maybe more dynamic or less dynamic, or the same dynamic as a standard tone of some type of instrument. But all it is oscillating. It's oscillating sound and silence. It's oscillating, wavering like that is what the pitch is. That would amount to the timbre or the unique quality of a percussive tone. And then you have, so it's yet an oscillate. It's oscillating. It's frequency, and it's oscillating, and it's therefore rhythm in itself. The primary unit of percussion is still rhythm, frequency. And then the melody would be a combination of individual pitches, and then their relationship to one another is melody. And then if you had more than one, you would have a counterpoint. So even if you had one, that may still be counterpoint, because you have counterpoint is the dynamic relationships between one, the same, or multiple pitches. Individual, what's appreciated as individual pitches is melody, and is also counterpoint. And then you have harmony, which is multiple individual pitches, but yet the same and different. The same would be unison, and then different would be different intervals, and their combination gives you assonance, which is like disagreement, consonance, which is, no, I'm sorry, it gives you assonance, which is like difference. And difference is good, because when you want to be humor, you got to be an ass. So that's like an example of assonance, and that's more endearing sometimes. Being an ass. And I still think acidness, and the ass is the greatest farm animal. The most effective, humble, and enlightening farm animal had been the ass the whole time. And it's also the greatest member of a party, or even any social environment, even a formal or proper social environment. I think acidness, some degree of acidness, challenge our own assumptions and others' assumptions, is always tasteful if it can be done artfully. But it hadn't been art if it wasn't tasteful, and it hadn't been taste if it wasn't artful. And then so you have it's assonance, consonance. I think consonance is like agreement, and then sonorous would be the combination of assonance and consonance is sonorous, and that's what's that's what sounds good. That's like another one for harmony. I think is consonance. But no, I'm sorry. Is assonance, consonance, and assonance, consonance, and sonorous. Sonorous is what sounds good. So that's maybe the same with humor. With humor, you have acidness, assonance, and then you have consonance, which is agreement. Agreement in what you're saying, truth in what you're saying. So when you're being humorous, you're saying the truth in what had been assumed. You're pointing out the truth in what was false, the falseness in what was appreciated as truth, and the truth in what was appreciated as false. The most simple unit of that might be a pun, like with the things that people betray unconsciously while thinking themselves conscious is a perfect pun. Like if I were to say dollar bill, the dollar being the stark opposite of a bill, but I said it as though I thought I knew what I was talking about. That is a pun and an oxymoron. Maybe another word for pun would be oxymoron. And then and that can be humorous and enlightening and dark, because it hadn't been humorous if it wasn't dark. But that amounts to sonorous because it's enjoyable. So I had to be at acidness, assonance, but also consonant, because there had to be some unity, congruence in my statement, in the truth of that joke. I think maybe it's been said all jokes. So all jokes contain an assumption, and all jokes contain a truth. I think you could maybe say that. And then the combination of that, as it is enjoyable, is sonorous. And that's the same with music, because you have a little bit of disagreement, assonance, and you have a little bit of agreement, consonance, and you need something of both to give you sonorous, which is enjoyable. But what I want to say is that the harmony is the multiple single notes that would be struck close in proximity, where the combination gives a different reality. That another word for that is like gestalt. I think that's in psychology. So you have different people that think differently, that have different experiences, and something about them coming together and existing together gives you a unique gestalt. And that you could say that's an environment. And also, I think Arthur Avalon has said that we have three propensities at all times, almost similar, like I'm talking about, like the three. So I'm saying like almost three qualities of music. So you have three qualities of music: harmony, melody, and percussion, rhythm. But you also have, within what is good music, you have assonance, disagreement, consonance, agreement, and sonorous, which is the resolution of those is music. So both the properties of music and the quality of music can be appreciated in three tiers at least of disagreement, agreement, and their resolution. Then you have humor, which can maybe be assumption, truth, and then the striking resolution of that, which is both dark and enlightening, is both dark. It is both damning and redeeming, and that is the dynamic joy of humor. And then you have reality according to the some of the thoughts of India, which is that you have Raha attributed to Raudra. I've said Shiva in other videos, but I think it's actually Raudra with the destruction. And then you have the creation, that's Brahma. And then you have the resolution, that is the maintenance, that is the understanding between the understanding and the grace between the destruction and the creation, which are both necessary, is is attributed to Vishnu, is Sattvic Sattva. Like when they say Bodhisattva, that's a protector and a sustainer that helps us learn lessons, is Sattva, is Sattvic. The destruction is attributed to Tamasic, which is like base or self-interested, and then the Brahma is attributed to Raha, which is motion. And you have those three elements in causation in itself. The maybe the Brahma would be more so causation, and then the aftermath, or the what causation amounts to for better or worse, and better or worse are all, again, relative and both necessary, would be the destruction and the protection, Raudra and Vishnu, Raha and Sattva. You have that in causation. All that is causation, and that composes the nature of each particular being, how that being is inclined towards itself and environment and other beings would determine the way that being is breathing. The cadence of the breath is profound. Then that would compose their mental disposition, because our different minds, I've said in other videos that we may likely have different minds or different dimensions of our minds. The only thing that's a unity between our mental mind, our throat, our heart, our gut, our genitals, our anus, and our spine, and so forth. The only thing that is the threshold between that and the mitigation would be our rate of breathing, and that's a function of our intention, our inclination towards others, which is being expressed, read, interpreted, and re-expressed, and that amounts to our breathing, and that amounts to how we activate our different, I think what's called our chakra. Maybe a better word than chakra would be our minds. Then our real mind, there's nothing limited, so to say mind singular is as limiting as to say minds plural. So maybe to say chakra singular is as limiting to say chakra is plural and redundant. But you have those, but then what activates, sustains, and what those different causations amount to is consciousness. What's been called Chidgana, massive consciousness, is it's not limited by any of those, but none of those are possible without consciousness. Nothing is anything without consciousness, and consciousness itself is nothing without mantra, without breathing. So you could say that maybe what is deeper than even Chidgana would be mantra, bond, but breathing. Breathing is that's maybe the only duty of any being, but also the greatest beings in being would be breathing. That's what we're all tasked with. We all have some degree of duty, and none of us can get beyond breathing and continue to exist as we understand existence. And that's the Ahapa silent mantra, according to Arthur Avalon, that we all express when we breathe. And I said in another video where I was trying to go in some of this series is that a lot of our relationship to one another in this life can be deconstructed, de-engineered, re-engineered, and represented to across a completely different way of understanding. So as I'm speaking here, it can be conveyed in terms of ones and zeros, and that can be replicated to intelligible, actionable information to another person. And maybe what's deeper than the word information would be relationship. What do these numbers convey as relationships? What are we saying, if anything, but relationship? What is anything beyond bond, beyond relationship? But the universe, I think, could also equally be appreciated in terms of breathing. What are our breathing relationship to one another? And what I was going to say in that other video where I was talking about mixed martial arts is that I've seen different brutalities in martial arts and in life. and we get largely desensitized to it. But in the pandemic, I saw a man be kicked in his solar plexus, his diaphragm, and that was one of the most brutal things I ever saw. And what's so brutal about it is that it shows you that we are existing in some form of dynamic, complex vacuum. Our mouth is part of that vacuum, our stomach is part of that vacuum, and also our anus is part of that vacuum. And our mouth is not different from our anus. It's one track. And I'm not trying to be vulgar, but I'm saying that it's a deep vacuum. It's like a suction and repulsion mechanism, as I think maybe the universe is itself. Maybe you could say the universe, if you wanted to express the universe in the most rudimentary of terms, it is attraction and repulsion. But a deeper way to say that is sucking and a suction. It's suction. So it's what do you need to, what does a snake need to do to get something all the way through itself? It needs it needs a means of sucking. So it's both taking in and it's pushing out. So what happens? So we take in food, we suck in food. Maybe a better word than eating is sucking. Some people wouldn't appreciate that, but we're more so sucking when we eat something. We're actually sucking. Yes, we chew it to break it down, but we're more so sucking it. And then somehow by us very sucking it, we end up expelling it out the anus. We take it in and we push it out. Attraction and repulsion. That sounds vulgar, but I think that the universe may be nothing more than that. It's a sophisticated attraction and repulsion, sucking in ingesting and digesting, and I'm not sure what the word would be for defecating. That is what's going on in our dealings with one another and in relationship with one another, where we're kind of more so filtering one another. We're always filtering the environment by eating. We don't think about why we eat so much. Why do we eat that much in life? Is it really because we need that much nutrition? No, I think it's actually because we are filtering mechanisms. So when we eat the environment, we're filtering the environment. And I think that actually our poop may be more valuable than it's appreciated. How can you have farm? How can you have food? How can you have livestock? How can you have a crop without fertilizer? Just to be honest, how can you have a viable crop and therefore life without fertilizer, without poop? So these cows are ingesting that much grass, filtering that much grass through their enjoyment and also through their suffering and through their effort and through their peace. And that amounts to poop. And that poop fertilizes a crop. And then different consumers eat that crop, and then they filter that crop, and then they poop that crop. So you could almost say that each day we live, we give birth. Each day we live, we give a little baby poop out of us. That's the birth of that day. But that sounds gross. But that, and we think about like sewage and chemical treatment of sewage as being like this great thing that makes life possible. But in reality, we would have been going all over the place. We've been eating stuff, and then we would have been pooping in different places. And that poop, as gross as that sounds, is actually the most redeeming and enlightening thing, because that's pure fertilizer, that's pure potential, and that's the substance of growth. So I think we're actually filtering, and filtering is more cold and deadly than it might sound. I was once around military people, and they said that military people are wheat sifters. So sometimes they sift other people's wheat, and sometimes they have their wheat sifted. That's from a biblical reference. And then I also heard another military person say that when people bleed, it makes the grass grow. So there's nothing wrong with bleeding because it makes the grass grow. That's what military people have said. And a lot of military people appreciate business as usual. Those are some of the coldest things that it's possible for a person to say. And that might be some of the more things that wouldn't be good to say on camera or for a public platform. But what I meant to say is that if you appreciate how brutal those three things I just said are, that I actually heard say by people to young people. Wheat sifting is wheat sifting. Sometimes you get the better end of it, sometimes you don't. Blood makes the grass grow, and business as usual. That is the coldest thing. That is the most inhumane thing you can say. But that's not what reality is, and that's not what business is. When we're eating things, we're depriving something or other of life, and we're running it to be filtered to become life again. That's heinous, and that's brilliant at the same time. But we also do the same thing in our social environments, where We're more so getting the best over of one another, and we're out to get someone or something. Some people say no one has anyone against anything, but all of us are at least out to get some form of opportunity, I would imagine. And to have an opportunity, that opportunity is likely not being realized by someone else. And then in the worst case scenario,